Who one?
Let's just share the link first, okay?
It's not yet showing up.
It's not just showing in Facebook. Can you check, Aldrin? It's not showing in Facebook.
Yes.
Okay, I saw it now. Give us a minute to share.
Can we have the link?
Yeah, the link is here already.
There.
Give me a sec. Okay. Okay, we're live. Good afternoon. Isang magandang hapon ulit sa mga kakwentuhan. So again, it's Friday, 5 p.m. na, alas PixPro na. So as committed by PixPro, our weekly commitment to elevate the cybersecurity awareness. So we are here today to discuss another interesting topic in the cybersecurity world, which is zero trust. So ano ba tong zero trust na to? Pag-uusapan natin ng malalim-lalim ngayon, no? With me today to host is VP Mia. VP Mia, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nandito rin yung kasama naming ibang BOD, si VP Sheila, good afternoon.
Magandang hapon.
And of course, VP Oka.
Hello, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Okay, without further ado, we would like to introduce our guest speaker for today. So Mia, please do the honors.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So for today, we have Mr. Darren Chen. Darren joined Scout in December of 2018 as he heads the systems engineering team in Asia. He's also responsible for developing and managing a team of experienced systems engineers within the region to work with organizations as they adopt and implement the Scout security solution. He regularly collaborates with customers from the government sector and many of global 2000 companies in Asia. So some of you may have met him already. Before joining Scout, Darren spent over 9 years at Exclusive Networks Singapore. It is a global distributor where he led a team of pre-sales engineers and helped evaluate emerging technology in the cybersecurity space. So Darren, welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I believe you prepared a short presentation for us.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So while Darren is pulling up the slide deck, so I would like to welcome some of our friends who are online now in our YouTube and Facebook channel. Mr. Roland Moreno, hi. Jen Seaman. Jen is my former office mate in Converge, no? Our regulars like Jerry Kawilan is here from PLDT Smart, our head for innovation. Our VP for membership for the NCR and Secretariat, Miss Jenny Hutiktan is also watching. So hi Jen, good afternoon sa inyo. So without further ado, I turn you over now to Darren. Darren, if you want to share now your overview or perspective about the zero trust, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you guys see my screen? All good?
Yes.
Yep, all good.
Okay, first of all, really thank you for having me. I think it's been an honor to join you guys in this Friday. I know that every Friday you have very interesting content, and I like to bring to you guys zero trust, where almost every security vendor is talking about this. It has been termed as a buzzword for many, but there are really some things that we can learn from it, and why is it important for many of us to at least understand where can we get content for zero trust and why they should care about zero trust. Right? So first we talk about the trends and challenges that, at least from our perspective, that we see is, first we talk about things like cyber attack surface, where people are working from home and a lot of us are actually going in and out of office. So we will have different kind of compliance challenges for organization that is looking at devices, managed devices, and we also have use a lot of these IoT devices that is helping to really help to do digital transformation, having more automation in terms of devices, having more devices in offices to make things easier. But this also led to different kind of challenges, things like cyber chain attacks, right? Because when you buy a machine off the shelf, you do not know what kind of stacks that they're using. Maybe the OSI layer that they're using could be vulnerable, right? So there are a lot more supply chain related attacks recently. And we also see the increasing of the cyber threat across IT and OT convergence, right? Where you will have, IT devices or OT devices that normally we need to be on-prem to do the work. But because of COVID or because of the pandemic, we are forced to be using VPN or remote access in even our vendors that is helping us. We will need to go through some form of remote access. So this will give us entry points to go into spaces where you usually do not go into normally, right? And then of course the next one is definitely ransomware. How does ransomware is still the number one attack, across the globe? We only see this increasing trend, and therefore you will see a lot of the endpoint vendors that is coming out here saying that we have ways to address it. But fundamentally, there are a lot of things that we need to take care when we talk about ransomware as well. So we talk a bit more about how do we look at this. So next we talk about enterprise of things, where we want you to be able to understand not only just managed devices like your endpoint. You also have a lot of devices that is connected in your organization, specific things like smart devices, healthcare, network gears. So if you look at the chart here, for example, we have smart buildings, right? For example, for financial services, we have HVAC, we have IP, and this might be interesting. Why is the UPS, right, the power supply, being the number one attack or the riskiest device? Because recently we have disclosed a few vulnerabilities that is pertaining to UPS. And imagine you are connected to your services and you still have power, but the adversary can actually turn off this power. Just imagine that this is connected to a healthcare patient where they are relying on infusion pump, right? So definitely in terms of the risk exposure is pretty high. So in order to quantify the different kind of risks, you want to have a mechanism or things, right? For example, here you see from the view of Forescout, we want to be able to help customers to quantify risk by these 6 methods here. What is the vulnerability that's associated to these devices? And in the term of zero trust, you want to talk about identity. How do you provide identity to these devices, right? Vulnerabilities, security event, what kind of things that is known or raised by other security tools. For example, if you scan this device, there are certain ports that are open, so we want to be able to know that. And what kind of services as well, open ports, FTP services, port 22, and what is the connectivity that's connected to this, right? Because you want to be able to understand whether do they go to the internet, and if you have IoT devices or printers that is connected to the internet, you want to be able to have visibility on that as well. And one of the most important thing is vendors as well. So because when some organization disclose security vulnerabilities, you want to understand, is this vendor part of the list as well? So that when you have that impact, you know how to then mitigate these devices and do control on them, right? And what is the potential impact as well? So if you look at things like managed devices under unmanaged devices, usually you have more control over managed devices. So you must have a view of what you have on both sides, on the managed and unmanaged, right? So let's do a quick example on the colonial pipeline use case. Most people will know about this. That colonial pipeline back in May 2021 this year, that they are being hit by the ransomware attack, right? And the entry point here is interesting, right? So you see the entry point that they're attacking is actually through the IT side, where they are not using 2FA accounts. So rule number one is please use 2FA for your VPN. So if you have that kind of legacy infrastructure, and they actually, because of this incident here, they shut down the whole OT pipeline, right? Why do they need to actually shut that down, right? One of the things is because they do not have visibility or a baseline of what they have on their OT assets. So another thing to note is if you know what you have and you know the changes or you have baseline, then you might not need to shut down the pipeline. So that causes a lot of things for the civilians as well. So civilians, right? Like they're out of petrol, a lot of inconvenience that's being tracked. And even 3 months after the attack, they are still being, headlined where they talk about personal information ban. So like any cybersecurity breaches, the reputational loss to the company is always there. So we definitely do not want to be the headline, right? Okay, so having this as a backdrop, you see, we understand now there is a disappearing of parameters, right? And deploying just firewall alone or VPN alone might not be enough. And definitely there is a incomplete enterprise of things asset identification. So if you do not have a asset identification mechanism, then you probably need to look in how can we better do asset classifications. So trusted network, right? Like I mentioned, if you are on to VPN, once you join in, you are already considered trusted users. So that might need to be rethink. And we all understand that segmentation is something that is very easy for us to adopt, but it's very difficult to deploy. So being said that, therefore you need a mechanism on doing how do we then do zero trust security. So going to NCCOE stands for National Cybersecurity of Center of Excellence from NIST. So this is based in US. So based on the document that I urge everyone to go and read, that this NIST 800-207 that is highlighted in yellow. So this is a 60-page document that gives you a good example on zero trust, right? There are many approaches to zero trust. You can go from identity, you can deploy firewall anywhere, you can go from network side. But one of the things that is being caught by this NCCOE is they selected 18 vendors to collaborate together. So what does this mean, right? It means there's no single vendors can provide you that zero trust, so-called zero trust solution, right? So we also talk about, what's the benefit of zero trust when we talk about the different vendors. First, we want to be able to improve that visibility and governance across the users, knowing how and when they access the data. But we want to be able to decrease the breach in terms of potential data exfiltration, right? By limiting bilateral movement. Okay. So also when we talk about recovery, so if you really hit into a cybersecurity attack, then we want to be able to limit the cost of recovery, because when you have smaller scale of attacks, then the recovery is actually smaller. So hence protecting the company's data. So having said that, what is the role of Forescout in these 18 vendors, right? Let us take you through in terms of the high level architecture here. So the high level architecture consists of multiple components. So you see, right, what we are talking about, how do we then identify the users and then ultimately going through the enterprise resources. So there is this zero trust core component where we have two parts. One is the policy decision point, which is this box here, and we have the policy enforcement point, right? Definitely we need input from the rest of the security tools to tell us how and when to do the things combining, right? So very quickly, what does the policy enforcement point, policy decision point does? So policy decision point is actually taking the rest of your organization information to be able to put into a single policies engine to be able to process who are they, when are they. And one of the core components to enable this function is the CDM system. It stands for Continuous Diagnostic and Mitigation. So what does this mean, right, for CDM? CDM is basically a program that is being used in the US government, right, for the different agencies. So they have this 4 phases of things. First is what is on the network, which is saying asset management, and talking about phase 2 is who, right? Who is on the network, which identify the identity and asset management. And third, what is happening onto the network, right? So what are the device doing and how are they in compliance or not? So of course, phase 4 is how the data is being protected. And you put all this together, we just help you to simplify it in a way that we want to be able to help you identify all the different enterprise connected devices. How do you then classify them correctly? Remember the vendors that we talk about. Each of the vendors, is this a printer? Is this an IT camera? So all these things must be classified correctly, right? Not just MAC address or IP address, because imagine you have a device of 20,000 endpoints. I give you a list of maybe 100 MAC address. You probably won't know what is it. So you need to have context of this. So having this program will help you to have context around it. Okay. So next thing is talking about assess their compliance. So you must be able to have continuous assessment on the compliance of that device, be it managed or unmanaged, right? So all this thing is talking about the fundamental of security as well. So if you look at the Forrester Zero Trust approach, we talk about identifying critical assets, identifying critical workloads. So even back in, let's say, for example, in Philippines, we also have the National Cybersecurity Plan talking about you must have an inventory of their physical system, the software, the hardware. So these are the things that is across the different principle of security, right? So it's definitely very important in terms of having that zero trust component of PDP to have visibility across your assets. So once you have that asset, you want to be able to then take control when things happens. So this is the second layer of that zero trust framework when we talk about policy enforcement point. So policy enforcement point is responsible in monitoring and enabling, ultimately terminating the connections between the asset and the resources. So the PEP will have many forms and shape. So for example, your firewall could be one of them, your switch could be one of them, right? So you need to have a system that will be able to connect, joining the dots all together so that you can have a way when we have the instruction from the PDP saying that this device is non-compliance, we need to act on it, right? So this will help you to give you that zero trust kind of things. Okay, so to sum it up, this is the high-level architecture where you can really go in depth into each component to see what is required. But what we spoke about today is really first, you need to be able to understand what is your asset, of course, your enterprise resources as well. Then you need to have a mechanism, the PDP, to be able to understand what is happening on the users, connecting all the dots, having that compliance status. Then you want to be able to push down information or controls to the policy enforcement point when things are not in favor, right? So for us, we have a easy 5 steps that we help our customers. So I'll end off with these easy 5 steps so that you all can have a look. First is definitely we want to be able to identify the total attack surface, be it is on the IT or IoT or cloud, anywhere that you have devices, you want to be able to look at it. Then you want to be able to classify them. Then next, you want to be able to map the data flow. For example, a camera that is talking to the DVR is okay. But if it's having an internet connection and you have that kind of information, then you want to be able to stop that. Then third is definitely that segmentation strategy. How do you test your segmentation strategy? How do you then see if this segmentation strategy that is being applied, does it impact any business services? So when step 1, 2, 3 is completed, then you want to be able to monitor, right? Because we want to start off small, like maybe a branch or a critical or new app. Then we expand from there and we monitor and analyze. And then we want to be able to end off with the automation and orchestration response. So you want to be able to have capabilities to be able to do automatic response when things are not right. Or you want to be able to share the information that you gather from your IoT, your OT, right, to the information to we call it a trust anchor. Who is a trust anchor, right? It could be your CMDB, because one system will not be able to tell you whether this device is valid or not. You need to have a trust anchor. So trust anchor will be some of the conversation that you might ask your security vendor, who is your trust anchor, who you do base it on, right? So with that, I think I hit my 15-minute marks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Darren, for that very insightful discussion. Very short but crisp. No? So before we continue, I think I saw our founding chairman already. So we'd like to acknowledge the presence of our founding chairman, Chairman Angel. Magandang hapon sa'yo. So meet Darren. Is Boss Angel there?
Good afternoon. Teka lang,
Good
wala akong background.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Kaya off cam ako, but dito lang ako sa background. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Angel. So going back to the discussion, no? So I think that Darren has laid down the very foundation concept of zero trust. No? I like the analogy on the colonial pipeline ransomware attack, and then the final slide which summarize it all. No? And I'm happy to see that, you know, in my organization pala, I'm doing the zero trust. No? So for me kasi, just to laymanize it to other audience that are not technical, Darren, that are not too technical like us. So for me, the concept of zero trust, if I will laymanize it, is, you know, I could describe it in 3 words. No, number 1, never trust. Number 2, verify. For me, that's the main concept of zero trust. No, and we could apply it in our everyday lives as well. No. So I like the point of Darren that, you know, it is an architectural play. First, if you came from a vendor environment, of course, you are more focused on the network side of the thing, right? So for us on the end user side, because most of you guys came from the vendor, so you see things on a different perspective. But on our end, as a customer environment, we see it on a different angle. No, so we always look at the end-to-end picture. No, so I could apply zero trust as a discipline. No, as a matter of fact, in my roadmap on my current role, no, architectural engineering, so I added the cloudification, convergence plus zero trust on my major play as building the architecture for my company. So what are your thoughts, Nia, about the discussion of Darren?
Yes, actually, I do agree with you, VP Alex. And for me naman, no, when we talk about zero trust, what comes to mind is being paranoid, because in cybersecurity, we always say we must be paranoid. And maybe let me take this opportunity to ask the first question to Darren. Because
Okay.
Darren, I'm just curious because nowadays, it's been more than a year already at this time of pandemic. For schools, how can they achieve the zero trust architecture now that you mentioned earlier the cyber attack surface is expanding? You also mentioned about disappearing perimeter, which is very true. Now that it's online, and you cannot just rely on location, for example, as a parameter to validate, because nowadays I know of some friends where they are out of the country or in the provinces and their kids still attend school. And the kids also use their own laptops, and sometimes when they're having issues with their laptops, they use another device like their iPads or their cell phones to connect as well. So what can you advise? Because I believe we also have audiences from the institution, from schools. What can you advise them on to how to achieve zero trust, or at least where to start?
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because in fact, recently I have talking to a bank in Singapore. They are also trying to see, how can they increase their cyber hygiene by having that users connecting back to HQ. So one of the things that they are a bank, right? They definitely have ways to look at devices. So one of the key things for step 1 is you must have the capability to look at devices, right? If let's say those are services that is connecting to the web, then maybe you should look at the things like, how does this CASP that it can integrate to your trust anchor, right? What are the things that is, connecting back? But if they are, going back to HQ like VPN, then you must have the ways to then inspect the devices, right? And classify it correctly. So for example, corporate laptop is easier, but if you're talking about iPads, talking about mobile devices, then you probably need to have a different class of, ACL for them, right? Policies. And to be frank, I've spoken to many cybersecurity practitioners. They talk about sometimes zero trust, to be in layman term, is not really not to trust anyone, is to really give identity to the things that you usually see is just IP or MAC. So what is this about? Who are they? What's the risk associated? And what are they doing? So this is the kind of game changer we are looking at when we talk about zero trust to most of our customers.
Okay, thank you, Darren. So I'd like to just to cut short, I'd like to welcome our friends from Westcon who are also here today, watching us. Hi, Westcon team. Our Batangas chapter of Pix Pro is also watching us. Thank you very much there from Batangas, no. So just a reminder, we also have our Pix Pro Ayuda for this week, no. So just watch out the FB page on the questions that might be pop up, and then you give the answer. Remember to put #PixPro. So VP Sheila, how about you? Do you have some insights or question about zero trust to Darren?
Yes, actually, what's interesting for me is his discussion on the colonial pipeline. And I think this is a very good case study, for a lot of the organizations. And I've been reading about it as well, that they actually paid the ransom for $5 million. And of course, besides that point, there's a lot of economic impact when they were breached, right? So to that point, Darren, my question is, what is a practical approach for organizations in terms of managing third parties or even fourth party risk when it comes to zero trust approach?
Yeah, definitely a very good question, right? When in this time of pandemic, you have really a lot of people that is joining the network, right? You have different vendors, different contractors that are joining in. So again, back to our fundamentals, right? When you have that device that is joining in, you need to also need to be able to answer that who. So how can they be, authenticated in the sense that we know that this vendor is coming in? How do we know that these devices belongs to them? And you might also want to have, bump it up a notch is we want to have certain compliance for these contractors when they join us. So I have a customer in China where they have huge numbers of contractors. So when they come in, they want to be able to check, for example, they are looking in cyber reason, Landesk, malware bytes. So these are the criteria for them to join the network. So if let's say they do not match any of these, they want to be able to then keep them off the network. Of course, these are hygienes that we have to put, but in terms of so-called the third party, like for example, like SolarWinds. So what is the ways that we are able to mitigate this, right? Of course, we want to make sure that our patching is always up to speed. I know it's not easy to say that, right? From a vendor point, it's easy to say, please patch, but from an endpoint, from an end user side, it's definitely not easy. So we definitely want to have that kind of visibility, what we need to patch first, right? For example, from the SolarWinds side, do you have a mechanism to say that, I have ways to tell you which SolarWinds machine is vulnerable? Let's go and patch that. So those are mechanism or, skill that you need or system to provide you. If I have vulnerable devices, then I want to be able to find them fast and do certain work on it. Yeah.
And it's always going back to the foundation that we've discussed on the previous Kwentuhang Cyber, which is visibility, no? So we have to know our assets. We have to have visibility on our assets to be able to protect it. Same with the zero trust. And now I would like to get the inputs from our zero trust expert in the BOD. Actually, BP Oka took a course on zero trust. I remember BP Oka, right? So maybe you could share your thoughts about this, new concept in the cybersecurity world now, BP Oka.
Sorry, I was on mute. So a lot of people are asking about zero trust, Darren. They want to do it, but it seems very complex to even comprehend. For them to comprehend. And how if they cannot comprehend, how much more to deploy, to execute now? So as you mentioned earlier, it's not easy. And I think I love the collaboration slide that you've shown, because essentially there's just no one vendor who can provide all the zero trust tools that customers need, to foolproof, their infrastructure. So I think from that perspective, I know it's very strategic, but how can they start? And then some customers are also asking, do we need to replace all our security tools? Suggest users from SMBs to big enterprises to start doing it now, planning for it, and then along the way execute on their zero trust strategy.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Typically, it's how does our customers want to start, right? Because to be frank, a lot of our customers have multiple strategy or initiative that's happening at the same time. It could be a 3-year, 5-year plan. And one of the things that my advice to customers is, look at the, ask vendors for their, what is your maturity models to zero trust, right? Because zero trust, maybe the end state, maybe even in my 5-step, right? The end state is segmentation, right? But how do we move to segmentation? We need to have the foundation correct first. So let's say, for example, for visibility, how long do we need to take for our endpoints to be able to see all of them, right? How long is that? And what is the next step after that? So if you lay this foundation, then you will know roughly how long you need. And if let's say there's too long, then can we choose a smaller segment or smaller capabilities to then work on that, right? So that is one. And the second question about, do we need to replace all the services or all the security that you have bought? Probably the answer from the board is no, right? Because you probably don't want to waste so much money to restart everything. So definitely you need to look at things, how do we then replace, not replace, how do we reuse that security tools that is already invested? So I would say that, more on adding on rather than replacing, right? So heterogeneously is definitely something that is very important. And like, for example, you have a VPN. Do you want to replace a VPN so that they can address some of the things? Or do you want to implement additional things like 2FA to address certain cyber hygiene, right? So these are the things that we definitely will help to advise our customers. Look at maturity, look at the scale that they are going to implement zero trust. And one of the key things that usually is not being spoken, right, is also the partner that is helping you. What is the strategy that they can help you? Then it's going to be a journey, right? It's not going to be one time. And you look at the 18 vendors. So it's definitely a long journey for any of the customers to embark on this.
Okay, thank you very much for that response, Darren. So let's see the pulse of our audience. Let me share some thoughts that were posted in our FB live chat. So from 7 Hosting PH, he said here, for me, security is a state of mind. Yes, totally agree with you, 7 Hosting PH. And there is a question here also from Pau Pau. So since zero trust is a philosophy and not a technology, it is applicable in all layers, right? So, correct? From endpoint all the way to SaaS infra. If this is the case, where is the best enforcement point when it comes to user access? Darren?
Okay, very good question, right? So when we talk about, if you remember the architecture, there is 2 parts, right? One is the PDP, which is the one that do the policy, or we call it the brain. Then the other side is the policy enforcement point. As the name suggested, enforcement point could be anywhere that is maybe in the cloud or at the place where we connected our LAN or we join our Wi-Fi. So you need to have that PDP or the PEP, the policy enforcement point in your control mechanism. That means wherever the users are, we will have ways to stop them, right? So you want to be able to not just limit to one gateway, but in fact, there's many. Because, for example, your printers has only one mechanism to join the network, right? But your users has multiple ways. So that policy enforcement point concept will really works to talk about, implementing zero trust. So I hope this answered the question of, how then can we control our endpoints or devices, right? That wherever they are, we want to have capabilities to do that. Yeah.
Maybe Alex.
Okay, Sherman Angel.
To me, zero trust is a concept. It's not technology. It's not vendor centric. It's zero trust encompasses everything. Like in if we talk about processes, everything that is running in our machines, whether it's a server, a workstation, or a mobile gadget, these are all processes. And most of the time, these are the things that most practitioners take for granted. So zero trust is not only on the access level, that I will have to verify you before I give you access because I don't trust you. No, zero trust is also on the process. That is why it's very important to couple zero trust on the concept of visibility, right? Without 100% visibility, you can never implement zero trust. That's a fact. That's a fact. No? Because if you are not seeing, if there is something that you are not seeing or that is not visible to you, to your technology, or to any solution in your network, then you won't be able to say who are you, right? You won't be able to ask the question, are you legit, right? And most of the time, this is how ransomware infects our environment, because the moment a um, a malicious software is dropped into our asset, and that malicious software executes itself, it becomes a process, and we don't see that execution, we don't see that dropping, then you will not be able to apply zero trust, right? So there is a zero trust on the network layer, there is a zero trust on the web application layer, there is a zero trust on access perspective, there's a zero trust on connectivity perspective, there is also that zero trust on the process perspective. It has to be end to end. So for us to be able to implement properly zero trust, we have to have 100% visibility horizontally and vertically, right? And not only on the process, we need also to have a visibility on the behavior of the user. The behavior of the user is very important. How fast the user creates his whatever he is doing. No, so there has to be correlation in everything. I think in that way you can implement zero trust properly and efficiently.
Totally agree with you, Mr. Chair. So actually, for me, I would further elevate it. More than a technology, I agree with Mr. Chair. This is not a technology concept. This is not about the solution, but rather for me, zero trust, I will elevate it more to a discipline level that all cybersecurity practitioners should have. I mean, again, it's a two-step. Never trust, always never trust, and always verify. So for me, that's the main concept of zero trust. For our what do you call this? Question and answer portion. So Teen, are we ready to post our first question for the Ayuda? So you just need to put #PixPro and your answer for the Ayuda. So via Aldwin, just let us know if we're ready to post our first question. So I'll just read some of the comments here while we are preparing for the question. So Cheryl, hi Cheryl. Cheryl is here from Force Scout. So #Force Scout visibility. Okay, Michael Lafuente, continuous diagnostics and mitigation. #CDM. And there's a comment from Blue Akil. With identification at every node or level, therefore speed of every transaction might be affected. Is that correct? Thank you. So it's a question actually. Blue Akil has a question, Daryl. So identification at every node level, speed of every transaction may be affected. Is that a good assumption?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again on the speed side? Is it on the transaction or how fast can we?
Therefore, the speed of every transaction might be affected in the identification at every node and level.
Okay. That's the beauty, right? I mean, coming from Forescout, one of the things that we hone is definitely the way that we classify our devices. Because imagine, right, when you have to classify them every time when they join the network, because every time a device joins, we have multiple ways to assess them. So not necessarily that we need to probe them directly to understand who they are. Some of the devices that are more passive, they don't like people to talk to them. So then we have other mechanisms to understand them. So when we talk about having that overhead on the devices, right, that's connected, we are pretty fast in identifying and classifying the devices. So it doesn't impact the way that the device functions.
Yeah, it's very important also to add to that, no, that you have to have a source of correlation so that transactions or speed of checking, review, or identification will not be affected. Right? So it's very important to have that kind of capability on a technology, and something that can also ingest information. This is where the threat intelligence operation will be coming from, no, to support technology like Forescout, and that will improve to the highest level the capability of the technology. If you have that information that you ingest and use it for correlation. And to that question of Blue Akil, it will now, transactions and traffic will be seamless in that environment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Darren. VP Mia, you want to ask the first question for Ayuda?
Yeah, we're not posting it.
Yeah, maybe we could just ask it and then they will answer with #PixPro.
Okay, so our first question. How big is the percentage increase in ransomware attacks from 2020 to 2021? Please don't forget #PixPro. And then your answer. We also have the question posted in the chat. Let's see if...
Maybe we can also ask the next question to make it faster.
Faster.
Okay. VP Sheila, next question, please.
Yes.
Do the honors.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, so if you were to choose, what would you choose? A world without COVID-19 or a world without corruption? No, that's just a joke. Okay. Okay, so the question is, what is the second step to zero trust? Okay, again, answer with #PixPro.
We have a winner for question number 1. Am I right? Frederick Gonda.
Okay, so question number 2 already given by VP Sheila. So question number 3, final question. Who filed the certificate of candidacy for the netizen party list today? I'm just also joking. For question number 3, final question. What are the core components of zero trust architecture? There are 2. So name the 2 components. Add #PixPro at the beginning, please. So for question number 2, do we have a winner, VP Sheila?
Not yet.
None yet.
Maybe...
They got confused.
Yeah.
So remember
Again.
the 5 steps that they gave. Remember the last slide. I think that's the last slide of Darren. So he gave the 5 steps of the of the zero trust. So just to give another clue. So for the question number 2, the second step to zero trust. So you need to map something. So what is that something to map on? So that's the clue, additional clue that I could give. Sorry, I cannot monitor the Facebook.
I
There's
think
Marlon.
we have a winner.
Okay, good. Cool.
Dave Lariosa.
Okay, Dave. Good job, Dave.
Map data flows. Yes, that is
Alright.
correct.
Okay, so we're just waiting for the final winner on the third question.
So habang naghihintay tayo ng winner, no? Napanood niyo ba yung nabasa niyo ba yung balita? DDoS victim na naman yung Senate website earlier.
Yes.
Right? So
Ngayon lang.
Yeah.
Ngayon lang.
Kanina mga lumabas yung balita mga after lunch mga alas 2 yata.
Right.
DDoS yung website nila. Wow.
So alam no, cyber attacks is not only for financial, also for political.
Yeah.
Hi Cheryl.
Hi,
Cheryl is
sir.
here. Hi, Cheryl. Welcome.
Hello, Pix Pro.
Bakit hindi ka na
Magandang-
napakita? Kanina ka pa pala nandyan.
Ngayon lang talaga ako nag-join. But thank you. I was late, but thank you for having us this
Of
afternoon.
course.
Hindi ko rin napansin si Che. Ay, Che.
I was so late.
So walang
Thank you.
walang winner question 3. What are the core components of the zero trust architecture? Baka naman masyadong mahirap yan.
Yeah. O sige, dalian na lang natin, Mr. Chair. Paltan ko yung question number 3. What is
Yeah.
What is the meaning of netizen party list? Yan. Nandyan yun. Nandyan sa chat yun, ha? Nakita ko yung kanina.
Troll.
May sagot si Frederick Gonda.
Yeah, for the third question.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's correct.
Actually, it's correct.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We complete the 3 winners. Okay, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So I have a question for Darren. Darren.
Yes, sir.
In your field, no, in your area of responsibility, how many organizations have implemented fully the zero trust concept?
It's an excellent question. So the key point is fully, right? I'm happy to report. I would say none of our customers are really fully zero trust. But on the flip side, something that is very positive is a lot of customers are really looking into transformation. When they have the overarching zero trust component, then they have different work stream to help to this effort. For example, we have a customers that is looking at zero trust, and they also want to do CMDB at the same time because they want to have a correct trust angle. So that created a one work stream. They also want to have, strengthen their identification side. Then they have the IAM project. So you can see that this overall architecture, right, helps to spin off a couple of projects that is ongoing. So that will end with, the goal in mind, strengthening the security. So yeah, I've not seen any customers that can tell me, oh, I am 100% zero trust, right? Yeah.
The reason why I ask VP Alex and VP Mia is because I have seen few variants of definitions, no, on and understanding on zero trust. And it's not the first time. Cybersecurity also is being defined in so many ways by so many people. And the same with the zero trust globally, because of the different understanding, because of the different definitions, for every country, every organization, for every individual, we are having a problem in achieving sustainably, the real kind of cybersecurity posture, right? And you can see that in organizations claiming to be secure, but becoming victims, and that is very obvious if we are going to consider the financial losses due to cyber attacks and the amount of data being stolen year on year, right? In spite of having technology that are getting more and more intelligent every year. And I've seen that because I started this career with the Wingate. We thought that was a security tool before, right? And security devices have become more and more intelligent over the years. But then we also see this financial losses and data breaches and huge amount of data getting stolen year on year. So they are directly proportional. Supposedly, if we are getting better, we should see a
Decline.
Whether drastically or so. Anyway, Bibioka, what is your thought about that scenario? Where are we?
So, okay, very good question, Mr. Chair, by the way. And I think it's because it's getting more complicated. When you look at the architecture, that's why I think the discussion around architecture and simplification of the security architecture is very, very important. Because the more complex it gets, then the more difficult it is to operationalize cybersecurity. And that is when there is a need for, sabi nga natin, there's a need to transform things that we have been doing in the past. And it's really, I think, the more difficult maybe phase that customer need to embrace is the thought that it needs disruption, it needs transformation. And when we talk about transformation, it cannot be just this piece, that piece, and again, allocation of budget to support this transformation. It cannot be patchy. So that's why I think although there's foundational requirement in cybersecurity, which is 100% visibility, and if you have truly 100% visibility, then you can truly inspect 100% of the traffic, of the assets, of the devices, of the access, of the transactions, of the processes that are trying to interact with one another. And I think, as they mentioned, it's becoming more complex and complex, the infrastructure. So serverless functions talking to a container and so on, right? So, again, if we continue to use or think the way we thought before about cybersecurity and we don't disrupt ourselves, then we will not be able to make it simpler, and your enemies out there will be more successful. And as you can see, they are currently. So they're more successful attacking us than us defending ourselves against them. And I think that's just the reality right now.
Ay, BP Alex, baka magalit sa atin to. Nagpapa-shout out yung ating
Sino?
regular na ang magandang si Chris Razon.
Hi, Chris. Magandang hapon sa'yo.
Sabi sa akin, shout out to, baka magalit, Napakaganda pa naman nito. So kasama din natin sa industriya si Miss Chris Razon.
Hi, Chris.
Okay. Parang showbiz, makakasama natin sa industriya. Para yung
Lapit na.
artista nito.
Cybersecurity sa showbiz ba, Mr. Chair?
Alam mo, actually, ganun nga, di ba? Napaka-controversial. In so many cases, I mean, Darren, sorry, I was speaking in Tagalog.
No problem.
In so many cases, cybersecurity has continuously becoming more and more controversial on a daily basis, right? And it's probably because of the incidents and the money involved that's getting bigger and bigger in terms of dollars.
Yep.
And the skills that we need is becoming more and more sophisticated. But if we are going to correlate that to the trainings available and the trainers' capability or level of understanding, it's really not, we are not really coping up. In early 2000, we said that the offensive or the cyber criminals are one step ahead than the defenders. However, I think today I can say that the cyber criminals are many steps ahead of us, right? Ahead of us. And yeah, as I mentioned, the technology is becoming more and more intelligent. I think we are having a problem with the human resource, no? Human resource, and because the technology, you cannot, there's a limitation. Technology will only work better if the person managing and operating it will make it work better. It's not what do you think about that, Darren, in your experience?
Yeah, very, very good point, right? So we all know that we have a shortage of chips, right? Now we have a shortage of power in some of the area, but the true problem that we have is a shortage of cybersecurity practitioner, right? Let's say, for example, in Singapore, the Singapore government is doing a lot of messaging saying that enticing young practitioner to join the cyber, to really hone their skill. So we really need a lot of new people that is joining into this. And when we do that, we also need to have ways to be able to train them easily and to be able to understand, because like it's very complex to understand different systems, and now the domain is so huge, right? We're going from IT, IoT, and things like SecOps, DevOps. So there's so many things. And one of the things is 90% of the data that the world generated is happened in the past 2 years. So the way that we are going to protect these systems or organization, we also probably need to change in terms of strategy. So I think now it may be zero trust, but in a few years' time, the fundamental is still, you won't change that much. Having good visibility of what you have, having trained people, be good to them so that they will stay, right? This is a challenge sometimes as well. So then this will help us in terms of challenging times. Yeah.
Okay, just in time. So we have to wrap up, Mr. Chair, the discussion. So I would like to ask for a final words from our guest speaker and our visitors for this evening on this Kwentuhang Cyber. So let me start with Ms. Cheryl.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Thank you again for Pixpro for inviting us. I guess my key takeaway here is, eto lang, zero trust kasi it's very broad. Not even a single vendor could actually address or help resolve a problem in any cybersecurity case. I think I've mentioned this in one of our forum. I actually believe in 4 Ps eh. Hindi yung 4 Ps ng government natin, okay? It actually includes 4, like people. People, definitely we have to invest on the right people that will actually supervise our security, okay, in the business. Get them trained, get the right people, and have a consistency in terms of discipline. Having a right discipline in place is very critical as well. Second is the process and planning. Because all of us have to be aware, we have to embrace that these things are happening, and we need to be aware. For all you know, these cyber attackers are always one step ahead of us. So if we're just going to sit down and wait for things to happen, then definitely we will end up the same disaster, just like the other companies that's actually experiencing this dilemma in their organization. And then lastly, of course, is the product. So that's why it's not about just always selling the product. You actually have to sell how this can actually give value to organization. So going back, definitely the 100% visibility is very critical as we actually go to the ladder of zero trust and a successful, of course, zero trust implementation. So with that, that's my last statement. And thank you very much for all our audience today and to Pixpro for inviting ForceCode today. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. How about you, Darren? Final words for our audience.
Thank you really for having me. So I think just two keywords, right? When you do visibility, make sure it's 100%, right? 100% is the keyword. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
VP Oka, any final words for our audience?
Yeah, so I think what I can say is that we have the technologies. I think as mentioned earlier, in zero trust there are no products, but there are better products that work with zero trust, and I think ForceScout is one of them. Yay! All right, but with this good products, we need to operationalize it, right? And as mentioned by Mr. Chair, we need people to enrich the richness of these products, these good products in zero trust. Hence, we are here today to do that. I think there are a lot of programs that Pixpro, we're gonna roll out training, and we've got we're launching our, I don't know if we can mention, Mr. Chair, our Hacker High School and so on. So please be with us in this journey, and I think we will be better off implementing zero trust in our digital lives, as employees and as citizens, digital citizens.
Digital citizens. Thank you, VP Oka. VP Sheila, final words.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, VP Alex. So like you always mention, from all our discussions, zero trust is actually a concept, a discipline. But like what I always tell my customers as well, if there is a technology that will solve maybe 80% at least of your problems and make you, give you a happy, no weekend, pero you can be happy during weekends, why not, take that step, that first step to implement and evaluate the solutions out there. That's it.
Thank you. VP Sheila. VP Mia, how about you?
Yes, so actually the points shared by Che earlier, ako naman, I would like to sum it up into three. We mentioned it's not technology. Zero trust is not technology, or should I say it's not just technology, because you need to have the right strategy and use technology as a tool. That's number one for me. Then the second one is having the right mindset. Earlier I mentioned in cybersecurity you must be paranoid. So the mindset should be that the bad actors are already within our premise or inside your environment. So similar to when you're protecting your house and then you suddenly think of, what if the intruder is already inside, then what will I do? And then the third for me is having the right processes in place. And I believe Mr. Chair mentioned this earlier as well. And, having the right processes, it requires ongoing effort because technology is changing. That's for me.
Thank you, VP Mia. So before I turn over to Mr. Chair, I'll give my thoughts. So for me, I will take
bro. VP
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
ako muna, ikaw ang host ngayon.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I give the floor to you.
You get the final word.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
So, para sa akin naman, pa-plug ko lang yung ginawa natin kanina. So, yung Netizens Party na binuo natin is a network of ICT, cybersecurity, and data privacy advocates. So we don't know, hindi natin alam, suntok sa buwan ito kasi hindi naman tayo mga politiko, pero we believe that ICT will turn this country around as it did in so many organizations. Those who did not embrace and deployed ICT, they became extinct, right? They did not survive. Now, if you are fully digitized, or if you fully deployed ICT, you're gonna need to be focused also on data privacy, because that's the more information we provide digitally, and the easier we send information, then there has to be data privacy. And to protect your ICT infrastructure, to protect your data privacy, to protect your personal information, you're gonna need cybersecurity. That is a perfect triad. A perfect triad in development, security, and feeling safe online, not only for businesses, but for us individuals, for us parents, and our children who are doing online learning. Thank you, VP Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that wonderful parting words for our audience. So for me, I'll take 2 steps back. No, I would like to, kasi nakita ko, no, there are some people watching here. My cousin who is not in IT nor in cybersecurity, but she's always watching us as she learns something from our discussion. Ako, i-apply ko naman in layman's term, no. So zero trust, I would like apply it to SMS smishing and phishing. Yun yung common attacks sa mga common people, no? So they are sending you SMS asking for your, personal identification, your OTP, etc. Or you receive a call from someone who is taking personal information from you. Again, never trust and then verify. So wala namang bangko manghihingi ng mga details nyo, wala ring manghihingi ng ano nyo. So always be paranoid. So one of the cybersecurity mentors that have always said, only the paranoid survive. So for that, so I would like to sum up our Kwentuhang Cyber for this week. Thank you very much to our audience. And again, it's Friday. Happy weekend to every one of you. Again, sa cybersecurity sa amin, happy lang, walang So thank you very much, guys. See you again next Friday.
Take care. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Chair.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you,
everyone.
Darren. Thank you.
Sheila.
Very,
Share,